Welcome to Short Movie Channel. The film begins in Paris with a professional killer named John, who is observing the hotel where the person he is assigned to kill will be staying. The killer is in an apartment across from the room where the target will be. John starts his day by practicing yoga and listening to music. Afterward, he leaves his apartment, buys a tire, and then calls the lawyer who assigned him the mission, named Michael. John tells the lawyer that he has been waiting for 5 days for the person he is supposed to kill, but the target hasn't arrived at the hotel yet. He says he will wait only until the next day, and if the target hasn't arrived, he will end the mission. After this, John breaks the phone he was talking on and throws it in the street. He returns to his apartment and continues monitoring the hotel. Later that night, the target arrives, and it turns out to be a wealthy businessman. John grabs his rifle and aims at the room where the businessman is. The businessman is with a woman from the night. John hesitates and tries to calm himself so he can take the shot, but despite everything, he misses the target and ends up killing the woman instead of the businessman. John is shocked by what happened, but he moves quickly, gathers his things, and escapes the scene before the businessman's security can locate him. He heads out to the street, steals a motorcycle, and speeds away through the streets of Paris. Afterward, he stops at a gas station, uses the bathroom, changes clothes, shaves his beard, and puts on a new set of clothes to avoid being recognized. Then, he takes a taxi to the airport to leave France. At the airport, he calls the lawyer Michael and updates him on what happened. Michael gets angry and says this will cause big problems with the client who assigned him the mission, but John isn't concerned with what the lawyer says and ends the call. He then breaks the phone. John uses a fake passport and books a flight. While booking the ticket, he notices someone in the ticket booth next to him who seems to be watching him. John is uncomfortable and suspicious that this person is tracking him. After he books the ticket, he spots the same person in the waiting area. John decides to miss the flight and not board the plane, spending the night in an airport hotel. The next day, he takes another flight. In the hotel room, John places a cup on the door handle and sets a tray underneath it. He does this so that if someone breaks into his room, he will hear it when the door opens. Then, John sits on a chair, holding a knife next to him, ready for any attack. The next day, John boards a plane heading to his home country. As soon as he arrives in his country, he gets in his car, which was parked in the airport garage. He then heads to his house, which is located in a remote forest area far from the city. When he arrives, he notices footprints at the main gate. He quickly gets out of the car, pulls out his gun, and follows the footprints into the house. Inside the house, he sees bloodstains everywhere. He then heads to the hospital in the city, where he meets a man named Marcus. We find out that Marcus is the brother of Nevin, John's fiancé, who was in his house while he was away. It turns out Nevin has sustained serious injuries, and Marcus tells John that Nevin was attacked. He explains that he saw the two people who attacked his sister as they were running away from the house. He says that the two attackers were a man and a woman. He describes the man as large and fierce-looking, while the woman was thin with white hair. Marcus tells John that he saw them get into a green taxi waiting outside the house. John calms down and promises Marcus that he will avenge Nevin. John stays at the hospital with his fiancée until the doctor arrives and reassures him that Nevin is improving. After Nevin wakes up, she tells John what happened. She says the two people who attacked her came to kill him and tried to force her to tell them where he was. When she refused to tell them, they attacked her and tried to kill her. But she fought back and managed to stab the large man in the leg. John tells her to rest, as she needs to recover. Afterward, he returns home, heads to the garden, and begins looking for a large safe that contains various weapons, fake passports, and phones. The next day, John gathered his things, packed them in his bag, then got into his car and drove through the city, looking for green taxis. He managed to find several green taxis around the city, and figured out the name of the company operating them. That evening, John went to the taxi company's headquarters, overpowered the security guard, and forced him to open the door. Once the guard opened it, John stormed in, punched him, and knocked him out. He then accessed the company's database. Using the ride records, he identified the taxi number that was parked outside his house on the day of the incident. He then pulled up the files for all the drivers working for the company, and discovered that the driver who was behind the wheel that day was named Leo. He was always stationed in front of the airport. The next day, the killer went to the airport, where he met Leo, and got into the taxi as if he were just a regular passenger. Once inside, he pulled out his gun, threatened Leo, and demanded to know about the people he had dropped off at his house in the woods. Leo explained that on that day, he was standing in front of the airport when a huge, menacing-looking man arrived with an older, thin woman with white hair. Leo told him that they had shown him the address of the house in the woods on the GPS, so he drove them there, and they asked him to wait as they would return to the airport later. Leo continued, saying that the man and woman entered the house and stayed inside for about an hour, before coming back to the taxi to be driven back to the airport. After Leo finished explaining, John shot him in the head, killing him. At this point, John realized that the one behind everything was the lawyer, Michael, and that he had sent those two people to take him out because he failed his mission. So, John decided to travel to Louisiana, USA. There, he rented a truck and bought some specific equipment. He then disguised himself as a janitor and entered Michael's office without anyone noticing. He killed the secretary, dragged her into Michael's office, and under threat of his gun, forced her to tie herself up. He then made her bind herself in the bathroom, and took out his equipment bag. He pulled out a nail gun and shot 3 nails into Michael's chest, telling him he had only a few minutes to live. He demanded Michael tell him the names of the 2 killers he had sent, offering to call an ambulance to save him. But John was shocked when Michael died before he could say anything. The secretary, shocked by what had happened, told John that she knew he was going to kill her and that he would probably hide her body so no one could trace it. She begged him to make the incident look like an armed robbery, and not to dispose of her body so her children could benefit from her life insurance. In exchange, she promised to help him identify the 2 people Michael had hired to kill him. John agreed to her offer. Afterward, he placed Michael's case file in the box he had brought into the office, then left with the secretary and drove her to her house. There, the killer discovered that she had a copy of all the files from Michael's office. He learned that the big man who had attacked him at his house was named the Beast and lived in Florida, while the woman with him was called Experience and lived in New York. He also found out that the person who had tasked Michael with killing the businessman in Paris, a billionaire, was known as the Client and lived in Chicago. After taking the papers with the addresses, John killed the secretary but did not dispose of her body as they had agreed. John then went to a remote location, wiped all traces of Michael's case, cleaned the truck thoroughly, and removed the fake license plates he had put on it. Afterward, he returned the truck to the company where he had rented it. The next day, he used a fake ID, rented a car, and drove to Florida to take revenge on the hired killer known as the Beast. Once he arrived in Florida, he went to the address of the monster's house and saw him with 2 of his friends. He noticed that the monster had a very fierce dog with him. So, John bought sleeping pills, some meat, and a bottle of alcohol, then went back to keep an eye on the monster's house all day. At night, John saw the monster saying goodbye to his friends, which meant the monster would be home alone. John got out of his car and approached the house, throwing a piece of meat laced with the sleeping pills for the dog, then waited for a while until the drug took effect and the dog fell asleep. After that, he pulled out his gun and started searching for the monster. Suddenly, the monster attacked John, and his gun fell. A fierce battle broke out between them, and it became clear that both of them had highly developed skills. They kept hitting each other hard until John was able to stab the monster in the leg. However, the monster retaliated with a powerful blow that knocked John to the ground. He then tried to grab his gun to kill him, but John quickly hid inside the kitchen. The monster followed him in, but John used his smarts to lure him in and started running away inside the house. Eventually, John reached his gun, grabbed it, and shot the monster, killing him. The dog woke up to the sound of the gunshots and rushed to its owner. When it saw him lying dead on the floor, it chased after John. The dog ran after him at full speed until John managed to escape the house and lock the gate in front. After that, he took the bottle of alcohol he bought, turned it into a Molotov cocktail, lit it, and threw it at the house. The fire quickly spread, and the whole house was consumed by flames. The next day, John used a fake passport and traveled to New York to kill the contract killer known as Expert. As soon as he arrived, he followed the usual steps he took in every mission. He went to a car rental company, rented a car using a fake identity, and then went to the Expert's house, where he kept an eye on it all day. At night, he saw the Expert getting into her car and driving away. John followed her in his car, and when she entered a restaurant, he entered behind her, sitting in front of her as she ate. The Expert realized that John had come to kill her, so she accepted her fate and asked him to allow her to finish her meal first. John agreed. After finishing her meal, she left the restaurant with him, and they drove to a deserted area. The Expert pretended to lose her balance and fell to the ground, reaching out her hand for help to get back on her feet. But John refused to help her and shot her in the head, killing her. He noticed that she had been hiding a knife in her hand to try to kill him. Later, John boarded a plane and traveled to Chicago to kill the billionaire known as the client, because John believed that the client was the one responsible for everything that had happened. He was the one who had hired the lawyer to kill the businessman in France, and it was likely that he had also ordered the two hitmen to kill John. Upon arriving in Chicago, John started keeping an eye on the client's house. He saw him leaving, so John got out of his car and entered the building, only to find the door locked with an advance lock. John took a photo of the lock with his phone and searched for it online. Then, he bought a key copying device from Amazon. John continued to monitor the client and learned that the client trained at a gym in one of the hotels in the city. John used his fake identity, checked into the same hotel, and the next day went to the gym where the client trained. He managed to steal the keys to the gym lockers and identified the locker belonging to the client. He opened it, took the key to the building where the client lived, and used the key copying device he bought to make a duplicate. Once finished, he returned the key to its place. That night, the client was in his luxurious apartment, and he was surprised to find John standing in front of him, with his gun aimed at him. The client was shocked that John had managed to bypass all the security measures and get into his apartment. He initially thought John had come to rob him, but John introduced himself and explained that he had been hired by the lawyer to kill the businessman in Paris. The client replied that he had no personal issues with John, and explained that the lawyer had told him they needed to get rid of any evidence that connected him to the attempted murder of the businessman in Paris. John learned from the client that the lawyer had taken extra money from him for this task. John assured him that he wasn't the one who had asked the lawyer to kill him and decided to let him live. However, he warned him that if he tried to kill him, both he and his family would end up dead. After leaving him, John returned to his country, went to his home, and spent time with his fiancée, who had been worried about his injury. John decided to retire from his profession and live his life with her, but first he planned to find the person who ordered his death and eliminate him and his family. And that's how the movie ended. Don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. Also, make sure to subscribe to the channel.